Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters: Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber and For Boxing News. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, it's a short week, but we got it covered. We got it covered anyway.
Yeah, in case you are not watching Game 6 of the NBA Finals, I want to check out some boxing on this evening. Here we are. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, and website/blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find out all information about the show, just go to the website p4pboxingreport.com and repeat that p4pboxingreport.com. If you check out the website, if you want to find us on um, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any other podcast platform, you can check links for us there. You can also find links where to follow us all over social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on IG, on Tumblr. Not as active on Tumblr as I should. Yeah, we're on there as well. Where you can donate, got a Cash Me PayPal donation link. Where you can email the show. You can email the show if you have any questions or comments. Um, you email the show at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport, and repeat that p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. Also, last but certainly not least, Let's Build Together. July Group Fitness Challenge is ongoing. Daniel and Gail and Daniel are both taking part. I hope to see some updates from you. It is not too late to join. If you want to hit me up, just please check out the bottom portion of the page. You'll find links to my online coaching page. I am an online coach for Beachbody. Um, if you're interested in the challenge or if you want to take advantage of Beachbody On Demand in the 2-week trial, which runs throughout the year, 2 weeks of free access throughout all the programs on Beachbody On Demand, be it the Classic P90X series, be it the Insanity series, the Insanity Asylum, Pio, Bar Blend, which the ladies seem to like, Morning Meltdown, which also is a favorite of the ladies, 6 weeks of the work, the new 645 program, the sample program is there. And also the boxing based program, 10 rounds. 10 rounds is a 6-week program. Um, 3 days, 5 days a week, 3 days of boxing, 2 days of resistance/weight work. If you're interested in getting yourself in some shape during the summer, just please check out my online coaching page on the Pound for Pound Box Report site. Let's get things going. As Gail noted, not a heavy week of action, but a lot of interesting developments that took place both in and out of the ring. Let's start in San Antonio at the AT&T Center. We talked a lot about this fight last week. Fight for undisputed at 154 pounds between IBF, WBA, WBC champion Jermell Charlo, WBO champion Brian Castano. And I go to you, Gail. Uh, Privately, there were plenty of folks who thought that Castano would give Charlo a much tougher fight than meaning the quote experts, many quotes the prognosticators or those who were betting thought. Turns out that was indeed the case. Um, Charlo stunned Castano early, but Castano came right back, stunned Charlo himself with the left hook. Close nip and tuck action all the way. Charlo came back in the 10th round, I believe, stunned Castano once again. But in the end, it was a majority decision draw, 114. It was a split decision draw, excuse me, 114, even on one scorecard. The other one had it um, 113. I believe, for Castano. The third judge had it 117, 111, right? Um, this bout could have been either way. If 50-50, 60-40, I wouldn't have been mad. I personally had it a draw. If folks had it for Charlo or Castano, 1, 2 points either way, I wouldn't have been upset. The thing that got folks most heated was the 117, 111 scorecard from Nelson Vasquez, Gil. Were you as pissed off as many within boxing Twitter was in reaction to the scores and your overall assessment of the fight?
Well, let's say this first before we dive into the scores. This was a tremendously entertaining fight. Lots of action, lots of drama, changes in fortunes, little bit of a roller coaster depending on who you were really interested in seeing win the fight. Let's not let the score controversy, if that's a little bit strong of a word, we'll call it that. Let's not let that discussion overshadow what was a terrific matchup, excellent matchmaking, and for Pete's sake, we had an actual division unification fight take place. All those are victories. All of those are victories. So let's applaud all of that. The scores didn't affect that, the reality of that. It was just a great fight to watch. I guess I am so used to scoring issues that I just sort of say, what else is new? It's boxing. What else is new? You have 3 judges. 2 of them see it, I think, in a very reasonable way. Although the normally reliable Steve Weisfeld scores a 10-8 round for Charlo where a knockdown didn't occur. Okay, he's within his rights to do that. Note the raised eyebrow. Okay, it didn't affect the outcome of his scorecard in the end. Nelson Vasquez, did he have his scorecard filled out in the parking lot before he walked in? He had to. He had to. The big differential was him giving a lot of those early rounds to Charlo. And that is not how the fight took place. Charlo can be a slow starter. He's notorious for it. And then, his trainer, Derek James, will light a fire under him, or he realizes it's slipping through his fingers. He doubles up on his efforts. He sucks it up, and he gets it done. And that's what he did in his rematch against Tony Harrison. We almost saw an exact replica of that fight, except that he didn't score the stoppage like he did against Harrison. Brian Castano got rocked a couple of times, no question, and he absolutely admitted it after the fight. But he kept his wits about him. He kept coming. So what we now know that we didn't know for a fact before the fight is Castano is one tough bastard. He took some shots and didn't lose his composure, did what he needed to do, got the ship straightened out. And for me, it was very difficult to see this fight as anything other than a Castano victory or a draw. Charlo did not do enough to win the fight. There was no champion's privilege here that I could extend to him. And it certainly warrants a rematch. I hope that will happen. Charlo sounded very, very lukewarm about it. And it's true that both will probably end up having mandatories before they have a rematch, which is a little bit of a silly discussion. So yeah, a stinker of a scorecard, not thankfully a devastating outcome, a draw. They escape with the draw. The fans maybe get to see it rolled back. Not such a bad thing. So all in all, let's not let that one eyebrow-raising scorecard take away from what was a really great fight with some good action on the undercard as well. And not a pay-per-view. So far, I'm hearing a lot more good news than bad.
The pluses, meaning the fight, the fact that it was unification, Daniel, outweigh in a lot of fashions, in a lot of aspects, that bad scorecard. I don't agree with that 117 111 scorecard for Charlo, but if folks are going to be mad about that, which they have a right to be, on the other hand, Daniel, they should be just as upset with the ESPN scorecard, right? Because they had it 117 111 for Castano. Even if you thought Charlo won, he didn't win by 6 rounds. If you thought Castano won, he didn't win by 6 rounds, right? So keep the same energy, folks. if you're mad at the Charlo scorecard on one hand by the official judge, let's be mad at some of these quote unquote prognosticators with these big names scoring the fight the other way, which was equally as ridiculous.
I could agree in that front, but unfortunately, and at least in defense of the ESPN, they weren't on a federal judge. Let's get this straight. Like, to anybody, if he has any doubts whatsoever, Jermell Charlo did not win this fight. Brian Castano won this fight and won it pretty well because he did what? Oh, it's like Showtime. Oh, that. No, Gail Farhood had it a draw actually because he gave the last 3 rounds to Jermell, if I remember correctly. If I'm going into it, but
and what I meant by ESPN, their official scorecard, when they did a recap of the fight, they had it 117, 111 for Castano. I didn't agree with that either, so that's what I was looking.
Yeah, because the most fair scorecard actually is Showtime's, which it would have been a draw. Like, I would be fine. The end result is fine because Mel showed that he can still hurt Castano, but Castano showed that he has a chin, and he has shown that he can hurt Mel multiple times. And he hurt him in a way that Charlo tends to not do very well because, unfortunately, it's one of the things that he's gone since moving away from his brother's camp. He's become a bit of a headhunter. Castano was hurting him with body shots. So it was a good fight. Like, overall, the action itself was worthy of what the significance of this is. The unification of A division, the first time in a 4-belt era. Outside of the scorecard leaving a bad taste in people's mouths, it's a result that I could see happening even if it was fair now. The 10-8 Weisfeld situation, there's always been that debate whether if a fighter is that hurt, should you score at a 10-8? Some judges do, some judges don't. Some judges see it as if you haven't been knocked down, you don't deserve that extra point. But even with that point, Castano, that was one of the cards that Castano won. So that is very, very telling as far as the quality of the fight. When you can debate whether or not who can win and whether you're fine with a draw, it tells you that you got a pretty good fight out of it. Now, will they run it back? I don't think so. Unfortunately, I don't think so. Even though it would make the whole sense of the world to do it. And there's issues of mandatories and the fact that Mel didn't really sound that confident in the post-fight interview about the entire situation.
Let's talk about rematch and then running back. First of all, shout out to Sean Fitzgerald for joining us in the live YouTube chat. You mentioned that Mel didn't sound too willing to run it back immediately. There's also what Gail mentioned about issues of mandatories, notably for Charlo. One against, not mandatory, mandatories if you want to put it that way. Erickson Lubin in the WBC and Tim Tszyu for Castano in the WBO. Tszyu, in fact, immediately after the fight, took to social media, took to Twitter and congratulated Castano on his performance and says, basically, he's next, right? It looks like we will not see that rematch immediately. Will we instead see a Charlo versus a Lubin or one of his other number one contenders, be it Madrimov in the WBA, Murtalayev in the WBO, or most notably, I think we may see Castano versus Tim Tszyu because they want that fight, the Tszyu camp. And not only do they want it, Gail, they're going to try to pull him over to Australia. I think that would be unfair coming off of this kind of performance. But still, money talks. Money talks, and they got to hold Tim Tszyu, the name, the cachet, got a whole lot of pull.
Hey, I think Castano would not I think he'd be well served by taking that fight in Australia. I think he's perfectly capable of taking care of business there, seeing if Tim Tszyu is a real deal. Let's remember, he's from Argentina. They're both Southern Hemisphere fighters. It's, it's still a bit of a distance to Australia, but hey, Argentina to the United States is no, short hop either. So, if it's the next few months, you're starting to work your way into the Southern Hemisphere's summer months, and that fight would fill a massive arena, draw massive interest, and a big payday for Castano. So, if I'm Castano's folks, I say, for the right amount of money, you bet I'll do it. And I think he'd make a nice big payday, far bigger realistically than he can make with Charlo in a rematch. I really think so. I think there's a lot of money for him to be had. If he believes in himself and thinks he's got a shot, let him do it. As for Charlo, he's kind of in a worse position. I don't really need to see him fight somebody he knocked out in the first round the first time. I'm kind of done with that. As far as his opponents, Israel Madrimov had a tough fight the last go. If I'm Charlo, that's kind of who I aim at. Bakram Murtazaliev was on the undercard. He won. I think he's by far the tougher opponent. That's a fight as a fan I'd much rather see. I think we're going to see Madrimov. That's going to be my guess.
I also want to give a shout out to Lee Gross, who joined us also live on the YouTube chat. I'll go to you, Daniel. Thoughts on what's next for these two? Will we see Tim Tszyu and Castano and Tim Tszyu, excuse me? Will we see another fight between Mel and Lubin?
The Tszyu situation, it's a little bit more straightforward because it's pretty simple. Like it is a lot of money. They're gonna throw a lot of money to get somebody there. They were gonna throw to whoever thought they were gonna win this fight. So they're prepared into that area. The only hiccup could be how Australia's handling the Delta variant. That could be the only hiccup that could delay things. Mel's situation, to Gail's point, is a bit worse, mainly because I think one of the mandatories that's coming up. I think the one that's coming up after this is actually the IBF, if I'm correct. And if we all know about the IBF, it's the one sanctioning body that no matter who they put as a mandatory, they enforce it. They do not care if there's a situation to unify the titles. So if it comes into a point where Mel has to get into that area, do you now get wrapped around the fact that next you got to fight Lubin and make him wait? Or next fight your WBA mandatory? That gets difficult. That gets difficult over time, especially in Mel's position where your last performance, while still good, was not dominant. It's not one where people will have you wait in that situation. More often than not, people are going to want to have that rematch with Castano first. But it's probably, if it does happen, I still have my doubts. I still think either the IBF will strip Mel if he doesn't do their mandatory, or he seriously takes a look at moving up to 160. I still think that's probably the move. I still think that's probably the move he'll lean into because he's at a point where he's done pretty much all that he can at 154. And now that you know the one roadblock you have to getting undisputed is a fighter that you probably know now you cannot beat unless you knock him out. Yeah, it makes you think certain things.
And I want to mention something Gail said in the private chat, and I'll give Lee a shout out right here and now before we move on to talk about another fight. Gail mentioned that let it be noted that Lee predicted exactly the right fight plan for Castano on last week's show. All pressure. You're absolutely right. Lee did say that, and I want to give a shout out to him.
I think you
Oh,
muted me.
my
So
bad. I
like,
was on mute. I was on mute the whole time. Damn, my bad. Let me say here. I want to give Gail mentioned in the private chat that Lee predicted exactly the right fight plan for Castano during the show last week. That was to pressure Mel, and he did that throughout the fight. Almost put off the win. It was a draw. Good account of himself. Very good fight. A lot of people. He surprised a lot of folks with his performance. So yeah, shout out to you, Lee, on your analysis last week. Let's move on to another fight. Only other fight we're really going to talk about this week, and that is Roland Romero. We've said it before. We'll say it again. He's a bit of a lightning rod in the lightweight division. His mouth is almost as big, probably is bigger than his punch. He fought a late substitute opponent by the name of Yigit, who didn't make weight, was 3 pounds over in the post-fight press conference. He said he was roughly 155, 160 pounds with a week to when he got the call for the fight. And it showed, Daniel, as look, Romero, the one thing you can say about him is that he's physically very strong and that he can hit hard with both hands. And that's what he basically did in this fight. He just basically used his strength and his power to overwhelm and ultimately stop Yigit in the 7th round. You can talk about the performance if you want, but afterwards he made a whole lot of made a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of noise by saying he wants to fight with Tank Davis at 140 pounds. Devin Haney was also chirping at the bit on social media. Rolando Romero during the post-fight press conference also had some words for him. So the mouth that is rolling continues. Your thoughts on him at 135, 140? I personally don't think he's ready for Tank at 140. I think that Haney is the better fight, the more suitable fight for him. Assessment of Rolling. What you got?
oh, it's at my end, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, this fight wasn't fun to watch. I'll admit, because Yigit, you can tell it's a late replacement, obviously because he came in technically overweight, but depending on who you believe, he either was preparing for a fight on the undercard at 140 pounds, or he wasn't. Depends who you want to believe in that area. But Rolly did, for the most part, what he was supposed to do is the end result. He knocked him out, showed his power. Unfortunately, he also did it with throwing a lot of elbows and rabbit punches, and that got a point deducted. And unfortunately, in that scenario, it's probably a youthful frustration if you can show it on his part, because you're expecting to knock this guy out, late replacement, show yourself, and when he's not doing it, in fact, he's doing a good job of moving away from your punches for the most part. Some fighters don't handle that pretty well, and looks like Rolly's one of those fighters that can't handle that pretty well, and he resorted to some tactics. And unfortunately, like, the end result stays the same. Like, he's still in line to fight among the champions at lightweight. He did call out Tank, although that would be an interesting fight. Him and Tank, is they probably both have similar mindsets, and I would see if the same bully tactics I've only tried to throw would work Tank. And then the other ones are lightweight that want to handle it. But the performance is what it was, but I don't think Rolly did himself any favors, Gal.
You know, I know a lot of people just don't like Raleigh. He rubs them the wrong way. And he is a rough character, man. He is rough around the edges. He's lucky he's got power going for him. He's got a lot of aggression. He's certainly fearless. But damn, he is fun to watch, you know, even though the fights are just incredibly messy. And it was made by far worse by Yigit not being prepared for the fight, taking it on short notice. He didn't come in 3 pounds overweight. He came in 5 pounds overweight. At 135, 5 pounds overweight, it's a whole division difference. And Romero pointed that out at the end of the fight. It's like, hey, I fought a guy at 140, and yeah, I had to push him back. He's not wrong about that. But what it did do is it emboldened him to think, well, I can go after another guy at 140 if I can beat this guy. Well, pump the brakes, man, just a little bit, because a 140 Anthony Yigit is not a 140 Gervonta Davis. Nevertheless, why are we complaining about young fighters who believe in themselves, believe in their talents, saying, I want to fight the big names? You can make those fights. Why don't we let them? If he's drawing fans because he irritates people, because he's, the mouth that roared, he wants to tackle it. If the promoters, the matchmakers, the networks, if they think that is a makeable fight and that the trash talk leading up would generate interest, why are we not making those fights? Why not? Now, do I think it's going to happen? No. Davis has a lot of other options. If I'm Devin Haney, I'm not sure I want to deal with somebody that messy. A guy like Romero can really hurt somebody because he is just so wild out of left field. So it makes it a dangerous fight. You do need to be somebody a little more like a Devin Haney, who's skilled, who can make the fight boring if he needs to win. I'm not sure Haney wants to get into a firefight with him. I do think a firefight between he and Tank would be amusing. And maybe that's just me. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I have no problem with him making those call outs and yapping and showing that he believes in himself. That's what a fighter should do, is believe in themselves, for Pete's sake. And you know what? We're talking about him. So he accomplished his goal. Good for you, Rolling Romero. I may not love you every time, but I'm on your side as far as that goes.
Like him or hate him, you do want to see him. And he puts butts in seats.
That's right. Well, and there were comments on Twitter, and someone in particular who, and I would love to give credit to this, and I just can't remember who it was that said it first, said, brother, I think maybe you're more suited to MMA than boxing. Well, yeah, give it some thought there, Mr. Romero. You never know. Dana White might be calling you.
Bit of a comment here from Lee. I had to step away for a second. This is in reference to the previous fight we discussed. He said, I'm going to post it up public here. He said, thank you, Gail. And unfortunately, I also predicted that Castano will win the fight, but not the decision. Yes, it was a draw, but for Charlo, this was like Harvard beats Yale 29-29.
Oh, boy.
Excellent analogy. Excellent.
Oh man, that is classic. But that is classic boxing too. You take the victories where you can, where you say like, I really didn't win the fight, but I didn't lose my titles. So that's very, very true in a way, unfortunately. And that's how a lot of people are selling it. That's how a lot of people are selling it. And I'm not going to go into the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories involving Nelson Vasquez. That's Steve Kim did enough of that for us on his show, but that was just it was frustrating in a way. And I just thought about this. I think for all the talk between Tank and Rolly, those two may not face each other so long as Rolly signed with Floyd, because it's two lightning rods, two guys that'll get talked about, and you don't want to milk one of those cash cows. Now, the problem, unfortunately, with them is that they're both going after the same targets. They're both going after the Devin Haney's, the Ryan Garcias of the world. Now, call me crazy, but I wouldn't mind seeing Rolly versus Loma to see if he tries the same stuff with somebody that's as skilled as Loma.
No, he's not. And two, he's gonna get man. Don't do that to him by putting him in the ring with Loma. Don't do that.
But no, think about this in this way. Think about it. Floyd uses Loma as a threat to Tank to fall in line. It's like either you fall in line or make a fight with Lomachenko. Why not do the same a little bit for Romero? But okay, you want to act the fool, you want to do rabbit shots, you want to do elbows, you want to make me look bad and lose points. Here's your punishment.
See, Floyd cares about Tank more than he does Rolly, if we're really going to be honest about it. Floyd will pull the trigger and make that fight. And you talk about someone who will get ruthlessly exposed. Put Rolly in there against Loma. Loma would toy with him. He would toy with him. He would probably laugh throughout the fight while he's laughing and mock him throughout the fight while he's beating him up.
Yeah, Lomachenko does not need an opponent on that level, and he wouldn't engage with the nonsense. You do want somebody who's willing to talk it up outside the ring, get a little crazy, get a little busy. And the truth is, if Romero is saying, yeah, I'm strong enough to push guys back at 140, Loma has no business with that. We already know that Loma is fighting, a weight division really that's too high for him.
Yeah.
That's the last thing he should do is fight a guy who likes to throw his weight around, literally.
Though I will say, if that fight would have happened, I would believe it would happen more at 135 rather than 140. But nah, that's the wrong matchup for Rolly. If he wants to have a chance to win, I say stick with Haney, because Haney can box, but I don't know if he has the legit power to keep him off of him. Tank, say what you want. Tank can punch, but Tank got skill as well. I think he would outbox him or outfight him, because he's more tighter with his punches, and I think he's better defensively than Rolly. Rolly, he keeps himself open while he punches. You can see his punches coming all day. Excuse me, he just hadn't been putting in there with an opponent would take advantage of his deficiencies. But yeah, again, he keeps himself out there. He keeps a name. He's a name. He keeps fans in it. He keeps fans talking, and ultimately that's what you want in one aspect. Put butts in seats, and they will continue to come see you, and they will, like them or hate them. Let's move on to some news here. Last week we talked a lot about Tyson Fury failing testing positive for COVID-19. I want to say that if you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and anywhere else in between, I made kind of a disclaimer. I made a point to note at the very end of the show, after we ended things, that news broke the day after our recording last week that the trilogy has been rescheduled for October the 9th, right? But Gail, there's some controversy that continues to remain, and is based on the discussion that we had in reaction to the positive COVID-19 test last week, and something that Marquise Johns, a Big Fight Weekend, noted, and that was the photos that showed up of Fury, one at a car dealership, one at a casino. This would have been a time where he was supposed to be under quarantine. Fury has still yet to make a statement about the positive test. Now, cynics, conspiracy theorists, if you want to go there, are saying that the reason it was pushed back was because of low ticket sales. Frank Warren did an interview yesterday, and I wrote about it for 3kingsboxing.com. Please check out 3kingsboxing.com, latest for boxing information, saying that's a bit of rubbish. He believes that's a bit of rubbish. $14 million of tickets were sold. Anyway, a lot of speculation and innuendo has just been thrown out and about, Gail, since all of this developed since the end of our show last week. What do you make of it?
Well, let's coalesce the facts here, put them all on the table because they did trickle in little by little. You know, the photo, yeah, a very bad look. However, according to an official statement out of Top Rank and Frank Warren issued by their media relations firm, Swanson Communications, apparently Fury tested positive, wasn't able to train, was quarantining, but then he tested negative on Tuesday of the week following. So fairly quickly he tested negative, and his physician apparently cleared him to travel home to England. Now, he took that, I guess, to mean that he could also, visit a casino, go look at some cars, and oh, by the way, then go home, that he was completely cleared to be out there. So he wasn't running around with an active case of COVID. In theory, according to the doctor, he says he was okay. Well, that raises some other questions about testing positive and then being cleared so quickly. Was the first one false positive? Was the first test toward the end of a very quick infection that he was in fact partially protected by the one of two doses of the vaccine that he got and that he brushed it off quickly? Or is there some sort of shenanigans going on over the ticket sales? I tend to think it's the messiness of the COVID virus. The tests are not infallible. Yeah, maybe he picked it up and brushed it off quickly. He is an athlete. And the vaccines do provide protection, not as strong when you've just had one dose of two, but it's certainly a lot more than if he'd had none. Now, he made a statement for the news release, and it reads as follows. It's worth reading out loud. I wanted nothing more than to smash the big dosser on July 24th, but I guess the beating will have to wait. Make no mistake, I will be back and better than ever. We will fight October 9th, and I will knock him Spark out. Now, he makes no comment about his vaccination situation, about having COVID, about his health, about being sorry about this. To me, an apology was in order. At the very least, he should have said, I made a mistake. I gambled. And apparently the word is that he was concerned the second dose of the vaccine would affect his training, because the second dose of the Moderna vaccine, which is apparently the one he was issued, is the one known to kick people's ass with side effects. And I'm here to tell you, I'm one of those people who had some vicious side effects. But what I also learned about this vaccine and looking into it is the Moderna vaccine is the same dose for everyone, regardless of age, gender, or body weight. It's the same size dose. So I'm a flyweight on a good day, all right? I got the same dose as a guy who weighs 180 pounds more than I do. And that's not an exaggeration. I just don't think it would have hit him quite as hard as it did me. Plus, he's a professional athlete. Now, I'm in good shape, but I'm not training for prize fights either. So there's a lot to be skeptical of. There's a lot to question. Bottom line is, fight's rescheduled for October 9th. Let's cross our fingers that some crazy thing doesn't happen. COVID still gets a say. This Delta variant is a dark cloud threatening on the horizon of a lot of things, including the Olympics. And I would just say to everyone in the listening audience, do not make non-refundable travel plans for boxing anytime soon, for this fight or any other one.
Now, last week, Daniel, you went off AWF in reaction to this news, and you talked about the shenanigans and use your favorite word that starts with an F. In light of the slow dripping information / facts that have been dropping since the end of our episode last week, has your opinion changed at all? Or are you still just like shaking your damn head.
It's actually gotten worse, if you want to believe it. Because I'll be honest, Gail, the news of the Moderna vaccine is news to me. Because at least I was under the impression that he got the Pfizer shot.
I believe Bob Arum. Well, Bob Arum was wrong the first time because he thought he'd gotten the Johnson & Johnson. But in his comments when he reacted to the news, he said, gosh, I thought that Fury got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and it turns out he got the Moderna vaccine. Whichever way, I believe the dosing is still the same when you're getting any of them. There's no accommodation for body weight. Everybody gets the same amount.
Yeah, no, that's true, but that's true in the current both set, and we know all three of us here. We know we're vaccinated, and we know that it's not exactly a fun trip the second time around. But oh god, this is so stupid. First of all, okay, you test positive, and in a few days you test negative. Yes, there is such a thing as a false positive. That he may have been positive in that area. But then false negative wouldn't, granted, I know I'm talking about Tyson Fury here, but wouldn't common sense dictate to you, you know what, even though I tested negative, maybe I should stay away from people still? Because if I wind up taking a picture at a dealership for a dealership's Instagram, or if I take a picture with a fan on his Instagram story so you can't say you got taken months back, people won't think that I'm doing some dumb shit. But this just makes it look worse. He just puts out a statement saying like, oh, the classic, oh, we'll get to bring later. No accountability for his action. No accountability for the fact that one of the people that you put that's supposed to be on the card went to the damn hospital. No accountability for the other people that tested positive around. We haven't heard from them. I haven't seen Andy Lee saying, oh, I got a negative test. I haven't seen Joseph Parker say, oh, I got a negative test after the positive test. There's that. And then there's the little tidbit that came out that said, I'm gonna go to Freddie Roach to focus on a bit of the training. If that's not an admission that you were just flat out of shape, you were not prepared at all for this fight, I don't know what is. Because now, given benefit of the doubt that he did test positive, that he did have it, we've all know the track record of fighters that come back to their first fight after a positive test, after battling COVID. We know the track record. And we also know the track record of Tyson Fury when it comes to how serious he takes certain things. Now, as far as the tickets go, like I said last week, this is a fight that Top Rank Frank Warren didn't want this fight. They wanted the Joshua fight. Only had one press conference for this entire thing. So I don't think marketing in that area was going to be, or selling tickets was going to be a key into doing it. They just wanted this to get it over with. Now you're going to have 3 more months to prolong that area. And unfortunately in them, and even if people are still going to say that Wilder will get outboxed pretty easily by Fury in that sense, it's still the fact remains that at the end of the day, Wilder has not been going out acting a fool this whole time. He's actually been training. While Fury has been going out acting a fool. You just give him more time to prepare. Now, he could get injured. He himself could catch COVID because his training camps in Tuscaloosa and Alabama ain't exactly pretty high in the number of people vaccinated. But at the end of the day, you have 3 more months now to prepare. And unfortunately, and this is the bad part, you surrendered a good part of the fact that most of the audience is going to be on you, because on October, you're going to have NBA preseason. You're going to have the NFL. You're going to have at least MLB playoffs. So there's a lot happening that you're not going to keep the spotlight on to that area. Now, heavyweights sell themselves, but at the end of the day, it just makes things worse.
So yeah, this is a lot, and still trying to digest it all. Get annoyed at the fact of the lack of clarity when it comes to Fury, when it comes to Aram, when it comes to Warren. So many unknowns. In the end, the fight is going to happen. Um, we do have a new date, October 9th, but you would like to get a greater sense that everything is on the go, everything is all to the good, because um, in spite of the new updates, the kind of attitude that we had, the attitude, our reaction remains to what it was last week. This was bungled. Um, Referred to it as incompetence last week, and that word still applies. Thank you for Yolanda Cortez, who just chimed in, who just joined us as well in the live YouTube chat. Incompetence is still relevant now as it was last week, because why? This didn't need to be so muddled and so unclear. You wish it was more clear, in spite of the fact that we know what is going to be, these two are going to get in the ring. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Professionalism, folks, professionalism on all parties involved. I just don't get it. It's just stupid to be mishandling like this. Too much money on the line, too big of a fight. Do better, Team Fury. Just do better. That's all I got to say about that. Another fight, we've known about this fight for a while, but it was made official today. Anthony Joshua defending his BA, IBF, WBO titles against Alexander-Usyk, who I believe is the mandatory challenger according to the WBO. September 25th in London, Daniel. Tottenham Stadium, I believe it is in London. Oh, I believe it's Tottenham Stadium in London. What do you make of it? I think personally, if folks think that Joshua is just going to blow this guy away, Usyk, just because he was a cruiserweight, I believe they have another thing coming. If Usyk decides to fight smart and box, technically he's more skilled than AJ.
Here's a part of it, and this has been the weird part of the whole area. Yes, Usyk came into the scene as a cruiserweight, and coming in as a heavyweight, yeah, he didn't knock people out the way he was hurting and knocking people out at cruiserweight. We also have to remember that he also did switch trainers, and Russ Sadner has not exactly been good to him as far as trainer, if you're comparing him with Mr. Bashir. But the part that I think people forget when it comes to Joshua, and I think this is just a part that people just want to see Joshua Fury so badly. They just want to see it, particularly the British audience. They just want to see it because it's the fact that they forget that Joshua can be hit and he can be hurt. Klitschko showed that as far as going to the area. Andy Ruiz showed that. Somebody that, when you compared size and everything, looked a lot smaller than Joshua. He was able to hurt him. Now,
even Joseph Parker got his attention a couple times.
Yeah, in the third round of their fight, Joseph Parker was hurting Joshua with body shots. That's his main Achilles heel, body shots. And now you're put in a scenario that you're with somebody that, yeah, he's smaller. So you're looking into a situation like Ruiz, but guess what? He's a lot better conditioned than Ruiz, and he's more skilled than Ruiz. And we have to remember, this is one of the fights that Eddie Hearn did not want. He did not want this fight even though he still has a good relationship with Usyk. There is a really good chance that Joshua may be upset in this fight, and that's the whole scenario that falls into it, particularly for the British audience. You literally go from the undisputed heavyweight championship being fought between two Brits to a very decent possibility now, with all the factors involved, that instead of it being two Brits, it'll be between an American and a Ukrainian. So you still have to give the champions advantage. Joshua's not exactly a slouch either when it comes to the sport, but at the end of the day, he's proven he's vulnerable, and Usyk has the right tools to take advantage of that vulnerability.
I know some folks who are predicting Usyk to score the upset, Gail. What say you?
I think he has a chance. I wouldn't make him a favorite. I think either way that it goes, even in a loss, this is a valuable fight for Anthony Joshua. It puts a different kind of guy in front of him to test his mental ability in the ring, because Joshua has the tools and the power, the physicality to take out Usyk. But this is going to prove whether he can be smart in the ring with somebody like Usyk, who is crafty, because he's had to learn to rely on skill instead of raw power. So that's what makes him dangerous in front of Joshua. Not necessarily a knockout threat, but a guy who can beat him. So if we can't have Fury and Joshua, I don't hate this. This is one of the things we like to say on this show. I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it. And I will watch it with great interest. And we both know that Usyk always makes the run into a fight fun without trash talking. He's already started. The social media is already fired up. That is a good sign.
A couple more notes I want to mention before we go on to break down some fights this weekend. This is going to be a light weekend again, like it was last week. News broke today that they're close to finalizing a bout between Canelo Alvarez and Alvarez-Plant. It would be for undisputed honors at 168 pounds. I'll go back to you, Gail. Do you have any updates? I've read that PBC is ready to offer Canelo a record purse. Canelo is a free agent, I believe, promotional and television free agent, so he could go anywhere. PBC, it seems, is pushing hard to land this fight. Do you have any update for the folks?
I do not, but wow, isn't this interesting? You know, this would be Canelo's first PBC on Fox pay-per-view. The reported fee is in the $40 million range. And it's all going to depend on what Alvarez-Plant's asking for. How much will PBC rein in his expectations to make this fight so that everybody rides? I think it will happen. I think we might have some shaky moments getting there, but the truth is Canelo needs the Plant fight if he wants that fourth belt, and that is his target. I think he has very little to fear from Plant as an opponent. He'll need to take him seriously, of course, and he will. He's extremely disciplined. Plant needs to not do anything stupid, not make any demands so outrageous that this thing falls apart. Plant's going to get the payday of a lifetime. You know, once you're up there doubling the best purse you could have ever imagined, do you really need to ask for a couple million more? You know, come on. Take the great offer you're going to get, the life-changing money you're going to get, say, thank you, Mr. Heyman, and start training.
I'm going to skip on to this last story here. I didn't mention it in the description if you're checking us out on live on YouTube. But I'm going to begin this conversation with you, Daniel. A lot of talk about the Olympics, right? People are questioning whether the Olympics should even happen, given the issues of the Delta variant, the rising numbers of COVID-19 in Tokyo and throughout the country of Japan, I want to go from there and talk about amateur boxing in the Olympics, be it the U.S. amateur team or just amateur boxing, period. And start the conversation off with you. What say you about the amateurs and the U.S. Olympic team as we head into kind of a shaky Tokyo Olympics?
It's a pretty decent team from what I've seen. It's a pretty good team to develop, but it's not a lot of fighters going to for the reason that you mentioned. It's not exactly safe at the moment to be in Tokyo, to be in Japan as far as health when it comes to COVID. And it could work really well, but the problem, unfortunately, is this variant spreads a lot faster than most other COVID variants. And not to mention, unfortunately, the fact that a lot of the presentation of the Olympics is a little bit marred. Doug said there was a report that I think that the person that actually conducted, did the song, I think it's supposed to be for the Olympics, actually withdrew out of bullying. I don't know what happened there, but when you hear that type of story this close, yeah, it sounds pretty bad now.
Well, excuse me for interrupting, but let's keep it a buck. The country of Japan doesn't want this to happen, but they're being overruled by the IOC, who is hell bent on having the Olympics happening. It probably played a role in why the person who was supposed to sing there decided, nah, this is too much for me. I'm not going to do it.
There's that, and the fact of the matter is, and this is unfortunate, this is one of the things that happened in Asia, unfortunately, that they handled the first wave pretty well. They did what we were supposed to shut down completely, not do anything, and they held it under control. What's happening in Japan, unfortunately, is it's not a situation like unfortunately, with a lot of third world countries. Not a lot of people are getting vaccinated in Japan because they have this belief that they took care of it so well the first time that they don't really need to. And unfortunately, we're seeing the end results of it. Now, yeah, more than likely the country's not going to want this. The IOC is in a particularly bad spot, unfortunately, because it's looking like a PR nightmare. And with rumblings that there's already been a few U.S. athletes that have pulled out either because they have COVID or because they're scared of getting COVID. That it's pretty damning to say. And you really have to look at that situation because, remember, we handled the situation a lot worse than Japan did the first time. A lot worse. We're still somewhat behind, but luckily at this point, it's not because of government malpractice for the most part. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is, particularly in boxing, when you have so many events, it's not like basketball, unfortunately, where you can have like a couple of games here and there and people are clustered in there. There's going to be boxing, different divisions happening all the time, different congregations coming in and out in that area. There's a lot more chances to spread it in, to have this spread in. And unfortunately, it's going to play a factor into it. And like I said, I'm personally of the belief that I don't think this is going to happen. I think the IOC is going to see that there's just too much happening here. And for their sake, they may wind up canceling the whole thing. And at that point, there's no point in moving it to next year. You're not gonna have the Summer Olympics in Tokyo and then the Winter Olympics in Beijing at the same time. That is a geopolitical nightmare.
Boxing and the Olympics this year, Gail. What do you have to say about it?
Well, I'm not quite as pessimistic as Daniel about the fate of the Olympics. Number one, there's too much money riding on it. It would have to break down to an absolute overwhelming catastrophe for it not to happen. It's going to happen. And one of the few sports where we learned during the pandemic you could still have some terrific contests without fans is boxing. This also struck me earlier in the week. A poll by the research firm Morning Consult, which is very well regarded, polled Americans, American adults over the last week. What are the sports you're most interested in watching at the Tokyo Olympics? Of course, gymnastics is the runaway number one, swimming right behind it, track and field right behind it. You know what is firmly in the top 10 at number 9 out of 50 sports? Boxing among American adults. That made my heart happy. First of all, it shocked me that it came up that high. People do still pay attention to the boxing in the Olympics. Boxing gives a platform to a lot of the medalists to go on and have terrific pro careers. Let's think of some of the recent examples. Jermell, and he didn't even win a medal. Anthony Joshua, Katie Taylor. We can go on a long list. And the Americans do have a very good team. What's interesting to me is that the women are stronger in general than the men's team. Part of it is because American male boxers tend to go pro quicker, because if they're going to go to all that work and all that risk, they want to earn some money. The money isn't as big a draw for the women. And I'm remiss if I don't mention our 2-time gold medal winning boxer, now pro, Claressa Shields. So I think the women are the ones I would advise everybody to keep an eye on. Boxing prelims start right away on the 24th. The finals for boxing are Saturday, August 7th and Sunday, August 8th. Mark those down. August 7th, August 8th. That's when you're going to see the finals. Among the boxers on the USA team, we have an absolutely terrific flyweight with a fascinating backstory about some of her struggles with personal issues and mental health issues. Virginia Fuchs. Yaricel Ramirez is a featherweight. She's done very well at the Pan American Games. She's won at the Junior Worlds. I am particularly fascinated with Rashida Ellis. That sounds familiar. Rashida Ellis. Yep. She is Rashidi Ellis's sister. She is a hell of a power puncher and fights at lightweight. One of the women getting a lot of attention is O'Shea Jones. She's a welterweight. She is the first women's welterweight American female boxing competitor. She has done very well in amateur competition. And also following in our friend Sergeant Jermell Herring's footsteps will be the first active duty women's military member to represent Team USA. She is middleweight Naomi Graham, and she is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. So those are the women. Among the men, we have a couple of young pros who thought that after 2020's Olympics were canceled, in 2020 last year, they said, I'm not going to wait. I'm turning pro. But there are some new rules about professionals with a limited number of fights being able to compete. So it turned out some of these guys that got a few pro fights under their belt ended up making the team anyway. And so some of those names you're going to know. Keyshawn Davis, who signed with Top Rank. He fights at lightweight for the team. His buddy Shakur Stevenson thinks he's got a real good chance of winning. And let's remember, Shakur won a silver. So he knows a little bit about what he's talking about. Another guy you might have seen is Troy Isley, who is a middleweight. He has a 2-0 pro record. He's appeared on Ring City USA. He goes as Box Boy Troy on social media, so you might remember him. We do have a super heavyweight, and he's sort of a junior Andy Ruiz type of fighter. He's a big Mexican-American from California, Richard Torres Jr., and his dad competed in the 84 Olympic trials. That's kind of interesting. So there's a lot of stories there. I think we'll emerge with a couple of medals. I'm very intrigued to see what Davis can do, and I think a couple of the ladies will come through. So watch it. Whatever happens with the Olympics, whatever happens with COVID and the politics and so forth, I think our boxers will carry on and make their fellow Americans very pleased and proud of them.
Assuming things come off and are a go, I hope you just heard and paid attention to Gail's excellent breakdown of Team USA, in particular. A lot of interesting stories, some very good prospects, promising prospect men and women, folks to pay attention to. And let's hope, like the aforementioned Clarissa Shields, like Anthony Joshua, and the like, of course, Joshua being the UK, England, I should say, specifically. Let's see where these men and women go post Olympics. Old school, the Olympics used to be the springboard for pro success, prominent pro success, and it used to be highlighted as not that way anymore in terms of television. But yeah, one, I hope everyone is safe. I hope the entire Olympics, the event is safe, and let's see where it goes, because there's some names there, as Gail noted, to keep an eye on. No doubt about it. Let's move on to talk about some fights. It's only going to be one fight we're going to focus on. I'm going to bring both of you back into this. And that one fight is, excuse me, having some computer issues here. Saturday over in the UK, Frank Warren promoted show, Joe Joyce, Daniel fighting Carlos Takam. Joyce is coming off of his stoppage win over Daniel Dubois, right? Stopped him in 10 rounds. Dubois suffered a fractured orbital bone. Joyce will be the favorite going into this fight, Daniel, but maybe it's just me, but I think that Takam, former world title challenger, been a tough out for just about anyone in the heavyweight division. He even gave Anthony Joshua some problems when he lost to him in 2017. I think that Takam is going to give Joe Joyce a tougher fight. Dubois made it easy because he didn't know how to get out of the way of the jab, right? Joyce just pecked him with the jab all fight long. Takam is shorter, more head movement. He can take a good punch, and he's durable. I think Joyce, in spite of his jab, he's awkward, lethargic in there. He's not a boxer. And I think this could be developed into a potential slugfest, right? I think it has a potential to be some action. At the very least, I think Takam is going to take Joe Joyce a few rounds. I think he's going to hit him with some hard shots. I think that Joe Joyce, he's going to have his struggles a bit. He may win, but he's not going. He's not going to leave the ring without some scars on his face.
This is actually the best fight you can get for Joyce if you're not going to get Usyk. Because Takam has proven, like you mentioned, he has proven himself to be at least a world level contender, or at least a world level gatekeeper. And yeah, we can talk about for Joyce technically being the Dubois fight, but you got to realize that those were two prospects that were ready to fight each other. And Dubois does have, since given his youth, a much longer path than Joyce at the moment. Now, what's going to be interesting now is that one of the facets that Joe Joyce gets criticized about is the fact that he is a pretty slow starter. He's pretty slow and methodical when it comes to certain ways that he fights. Takam is a very tough and very calculating fighter in that area. So that'll be a good test as far as interest. Can he adjust into making sure that Takam doesn't lull into a sense of destruction? Joyce is still going to be the favorite in this. And like Lee mentioned in the chat, the situation is luckily that this is, whatever happens, it's a win-wins for Joyce, especially if he wins, because he'll be the next number one guy in the WBO after Usyk, after the fight with Usyk. So he has put himself, without even throwing a punch, into a position right now where he will be one of the people next in line next year, no matter what comes out of the Joshua, Fury, Wilder mess that we're in right now. So it's good on him. I do expect him to win, but I expect Takam to make it a lot harder than what some people think it would be.
You mentioned Daniel what Lee had to say. I'm going to put it up for public here. He said a calculated. He calls it He calls the fight a calculated risk. Excuse me. Joyce is currently number 2 in the WBO, and with Usyk fighting Joshua, he'll move up to number 1 without throwing a punch. But Takam is older, shorter, and has a lot of big names. He also says it's the perfect stay busy fight. I'll go to you, Gail. The short end of what I was saying was that Takam has been a tough out for a lot of folks. I think he's going to be a tough out for Joyce if he wins. And Takam, I think he's going to get his fair pound of flesh in this bout.
I'm not so sure about that. Takam has proved himself pretty durable in the past. He's been a good test for a lot of opponents. But he is 41 years old. He's got a lot of mileage on him. Joyce is an older fighter. He has really gotten his career going fairly late. He's 33, I believe, but he is, compared to Takam, he is fresh as can be. And let's think about how many of us doubted Joyce's chances against Daniel Dubois, and he absolutely picked him apart with maybe one of the best power jabs in boxing. I could see him doing exactly the same thing to Takam, taking advantage of the fact that he is older, he's taken a lot of pounding, and he just decides to stay at the far end of that snapping jab and just chews him up. We'll see. It is a good busy fight, stay busy fight. Lee's exactly right. Well worth seeing. It is not on any of the sort of usual streaming services or channels, but it has been picked up as a very minor pay-per-view by Fight TV, F-I-T-E, Fight TV. I think it's $12.99. So if you're motivated, it is available for you to watch. Let me also add, for those looking for some boxing this weekend, Friday night is the 20th anniversary of ShowBox on Showtime. I think we'll get some interesting looks back and retrospectives, and perhaps a lot of ShowBox alumni in the audience in Grand Island or Grand Prairie, Nebraska. One of those hot spots that ShowBox loves. But well worth noting, thank goodness we do have a ShowBox that's somewhat promoter neutral, that gives prospects their chance in the spotlight, a little bit of a test, see what they're made of. They've done really great work over the years, and it has been 100% producer Gordon Hall's project all these years. So tip of the hat to Gordon Hall for giving us that Friday night entertainment, and who I believe is by far the best play-by-play broadcast team in boxing, Steve Farhood, Barry Tompkins, and Raul Marquez.
Damn, I was doing all that talking. I was on mute again. My bad, folks. My bad. I think we're going to end the show on that note.
The mic's playing tricks on you.
Oh, come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. Come on. My mute button.
We better hurry up and
messing
sign
up on
off.
Yeah, let me try this again. If you like what you've heard this evening live or at a later date on YouTube or any of the other podcast platforms, or if you like what you've heard now on YouTube, or you're checking us out on YouTube later, Please make sure to hit that like button. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're checking us out on podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any and everywhere else in between, make sure to follow us on those available spaces. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live chat for their questions and their comments. I want to thank Lee. I want to thank Sean. I want to thank Yolanda for their comments and their questions. They're greatly appreciated. I go around the panel here. Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News and the Falcon Valley Group. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk of media, for those who want to occasionally check you out on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
You bet. For boxing, follow me and my column at Communities Digital News, COMMDIGI News, comdiginews.com. And I'm also now a somewhat regular opinion contributor to NewYorkFights.com. It's actually NYFights.com. Tip of the hat to Michael Woods for the opportunity.
And I'll go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat. We're doing this show live while Game 6 of the NBA Finals is taking place. Milwaukee is leading currently 68-63, at least on my television. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, that is the current scorecard right now. And this game is going to be close because it looks like it's going to be. I would not be surprised if we get Game 7, honestly. But at that point, so you can catch me on Twitter, RAWKZ99, and definitely Retro Does on Thursday. Me, Joe Francis will hop on the pod and talk about what's going on, everything to it. Hopefully, hopefully nothing has fallen behind on that front, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to talk to Olympics, even though, like Gail mentioned, I am pretty pessimistic about that right now.
Absolutely. For those who want, and again, as I said when we talked about the U.S. amateur boxing team, let's hope that everything comes off. Let's hope everything is safe. Everyone is safe, despite of the really troubling and disturbing events going on right now in Japan with people testing positive, and the issue with the IOC, and the issue of the variants and throughout this not running rampant, but is rising in Japan, right? Again, safety as always. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, for those who want to talk fitness, you know what it is with yours truly, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, the blog/website is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. Just check all throughout the site for links where to find us all over the podcast realm, where you can find us on social media, where you can email the show. You can email us at p4p at p4pboxingreport.com, where you can donate. Let the donation be the best nation. Cash Me, PayPal donation link. And also, if you want to get your body right, since we are in the summer, the link to my online coaching page, Let's Build Together, July group fitness challenges are going on right now. On the next episode, honestly, I'm not sure when it's going to happen because boxing is going to be pretty light the next couple of months, couple of weeks, excuse me. So I don't know when we will be back, but we will let you know via Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page, via the YouTube page as well. Again, I want to thank everyone who joined us. And plus, Gail, admittedly, because of her side hustle, and this outside boxing, things are really, really going busy, and I want to be cognizant of that. I don't want to spread her time too thin. So I may just take a week or so off just to give her some time to rest, to devote some time to her job. So there you go with that. Always have to.
I'm ready to tough it out. No problem. But
Okay.
It is going to be a light schedule, folks, the next couple of weeks. Do take in some Olympic boxing. Not just the Americans, but some of the stars you'll be seeing in the future join the pro ranks. They'll all be there.
Absolutely. So
Yep.
again, want to thank everybody who joined us on the live chat. Shout out Lee, shout out Sean, shout out Yolanda. If you like what you heard, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts in particular will get read during the show. So this has been episode 333 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. I am your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night. And last, I forgot to mention this, but I should have mentioned it during. I'll mention it right now. Rest in power. One, Biz Marquis.
Mm.